President Obama is sort of viewed as a role model right now, but
Sure.
as much as a huge portion of the black community loves the fact that we've elected, a dark-skinned man as president, there's a very minor black population that's really upset that he's seen as being black, because the real definition of being black is a descendant of a West African slave, which President Obama is not. So we have this group of people who are really looking up to him, and then this group of people that are very upset that he's being defined as like our first black president. What do you think that, like, what impact do you think that has today?
That's actually interesting because it's the flip side of the other debate. Because the other debate is saying there is only one sort of black, and that's bad, that all blacks are seen as the same, and especially that they're seen stereotypical. So here we have a very positive role model who, first of all, is only half black. And everybody seems to forget that, which goes back to very old, ideas of one drop. And that if there is one drop of black blood, you are defined as black in many southern municipalities. Well, up to far more recently than we'd like to think that carries on. And so here we have someone who is half black, but is considered all black, at least by the mainstream. But within black culture, it's highly debatable whether or not he is black enough. And so we get these differences of perspective between the mainstream culture that is viewing black culture from the outside and black culture that is viewing it from the inside. And so we get a number of debates within black culture that have been going on for decades, if not centuries. There are very strict lines about how black somebody is in certain parts of black culture, how much black blood versus white blood. You go to New Orleans, and it was actually codified into law for centuries about how much blackness, what was mulatto, what was Creole, and so on and so forth. They used to test people by holding a paper bag next to their face to see if they were darker or lighter than a paper bag to determine how black they were. And in that case, it was to determine what privileges they did not get. And here we have the flip side of the debate about, is he getting these privileges because he is not that black? And the interesting thing about Obama, besides the debates within black culture, is the assumption, especially on the part of the mainstream, that the day he was elected, racism ended. That anybody to any claim of racism in America, somebody could say, but we have a black president. How could there be racism if we voted a black president? But I really doubt there was much change on the street between the day before the election and the day after the election. Much change in the everyday interactions of the races in America. Those who were racist were still racist. Those who were accepting were still accepting. In fact, a good argument could be made that it has allowed more racism because of being able to say, there's a black president. It means that everything else is just tossed aside. If somebody claims there's racism, there go. It's dismissed because having a black president means that America is not racist, which is just not the case. There are differences in opportunity. There are differences that have been going on for years, and while they have gotten much better. In my class, I show a couple old cartoons from the 50s that ran before mainstream movies, ran on TV, afternoon TV in the 50s and 60s, that just used the most racist imagery with the big lips and the lazy blacks with the drawl and so on and so forth. Things that would never be acceptable on TV today. So things have changed, but having a black president allows many people to say, we're there. There was a study done a few years ago where they asked people nationwide how far we had come in terms of racism and how far we had yet to go. And the interesting thing about this study was that African Americans and whites almost entirely agreed about how far we had come and how far we had left to go. That the difference came in that African Americans tended to focus primarily on how far, what had yet to be done, how far yet to go, whereas whites primarily focused on how far we had come. And so their perspective was, look at how far we've come. Yeah, sure, stuff has to be done, but look at how far we had come. Whereas the other perspective is, sure, some gains have been made, but look at what we still don't have. And so even though there was agreement on the distances, that shift in perspective made all the difference in the world about how each race viewed the other. And so it's not just about the facts, it's not just knowledge of the facts, it's perspective. What is viewed and what isn't, what is taken for granted and what isn't. And so many of the media depictions of African Americans are so taken for granted, and in successful shows that the producers, the networks, and so on and so forth are never going to change them as long as they remain successful, and they're going to continue to be perpetuated.